You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Or so the old phrase goes. Some of you who are teachers or retired teachers might have something similar, right? You can show a child a worksheet, but you can't make them do it. Something like that. My current situation, it's something like, you can put the broccoli on the plate, but you can't make the toddler eat it. They do all right with broccoli, though we were arguing about, French fries of some kind, I don't know. Which is surprising, but they were homemade. That was the problem. The truth in this phrase, this little quip, this proverb of ours, is that it's not just about our external circumstances. You can bring a horse to water, but they have to do the drinking. You can show a student how to do something, but they have to participate. You can put the plate in front of the kid, but they've got to eat it. It's that there is a little bit of external and internal going on in all of these processes, in all of these little tasks. Some might call I jumped ahead of myself. We can't be coerced, rather, into doing these things. We have to participate. There's something inside us that has to want to do it, something motivated to do this thing, and it also has to be available to us to do. The horse has to have the water in front of it and also want to drink it. That change, or that thing inside you, or inside the horse, that switches from not wanting to drink water to drinking water. That change some might call conversion. Which is maybe not the way you would expect to use that word conversion. Usually conversion has a nice religious tone to it, right? We celebrate today the conversion of St. Paul the Apostle, our patron here in Pekin. But conversion just is that sort of change, that inward change, a change of heart, a change of understanding, a change of desires, passions, or loves. And so though we do have, this kind of conversion, this religious sense of conversion, it can be used to discuss many different changes in our minds. But it is most often used to discuss our religious experiences. And so I wonder, do any of you remember a conversion in your life? Now, most of us, as I look out, were raised in the church. So maybe thinking about conversion, some sort of going to the water sort of experience, or something like Paul struck by the light on the way to the church or something like that. Probably is not what happened to you. But that doesn't mean you didn't have some manner of conversion. By what I mean there is, do you remember when Christianity, when the cross, when what Jesus did for us made sense and changed how you lived? There's twice in my life that I can think of that. Not that I was converted away and back and forth, though that might happen. But rather, different parts of me were being changed and converted along the way. Once in high school, I went to a church camp, Christ in Youth camp. That was one of the churches I grew up in. That's what we participated in. And, take all these high school kids, you take them down to a college campus during the summer, get them away from their parents, and, try to teach them about Jesus. A lot of relationships got started on those retreats. Not for me, but, so it goes. But you'd have a time of worship in the morning and in the evening, Bible studies or other lessons during the day. Some of my friends got a slip and slide going outside one of the dorms one day. That was a good time. This was at Carbondale. So there were actually hills, which was nice. But that particular week, I think it was my junior year, that particular week, we got to the end of worship on the last night, and something clicked. Something changed. It's hard to describe, but something changed. And I found myself wanting no longer to know about God, but to know God. When Christianity started making a little more sense to me, when my heart was converted from thinking that what faith was is knowing all the facts and figures and knowing what verses are what in the Bible and being able to treat it like Scholastic Bowl, but for the Bible, Bible Bowl. I don't know if any of you grew up with that, but my mom did, and she was good at it. Something converted, something changed, such that I realized what I was doing in pursuing Christ was not all this cognitive stuff, but knowing God like I might know my friends. I look back and say that was a conversion of my heart. That was a conversion where what was the case, the direction I had been going was changed, amended, slightly adjusted maybe. That I was pursuing Christ differently from then on. Another one was when I was in college, or in seminary rather, and this one's a little esoteric, I suppose, but we were, one of my professors was leading a small study of a particular author named Bernard Lonergan. You can look him up if you'd like. But we were reading through one of his key works, and my friend and I, we were discussing it with our professor, and something just clicked. I walked away from that lecture singing, "I need thee every hour," because I realize that I am called to act in this world for the good, and I need some help. Our conversions aren't always these grandiose things like those before Paul. Even Paul's conversion, you might argue, is just a change, an amendment of direction. Paul was zealously pursuing what he thought was the will of God. He was persecuting the church because they were not following Torah. They were not following the law and the traditions of the ancestors. Those things that God gave us to make sure that we were God's people and that we didn't get kicked out of Israel again. He thought he was doing God's will. And his conversion happened miraculously by a vision of God. Something that did not happen mechanically. It wasn't just like, oh, well, he did this and this and this, and then boom. Vision of God, he's a changed man. But rather, in the wisdom and power of God on the road to Damascus, Jesus appeared to Paul and converted him from pursuing and persecuting the church to being the preacher and the carrier of the gospel to the Gentiles, that is us. We would not be here if not God had revealed himself to Paul in this way. And the thing about these conversion experiences is that you can't plot a mechanical way that it happens. Why was it on that particular Thursday night when I was in my high school years that night at that worship session that it hit me right then? I don't know. And why was it at that lesson, in that time, discussing that topic, that all of a sudden things were different in the way I understood how God acts with me and through me? I don't know. The thing about our conversions is that it's both. It's both the external and the internal. And it's the power of God in our lives. Now, I was converted at a church service, right? And it is unlikely, I think, that I would have been converted anywhere else. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But if you don't have the water, they're not going to drink. The changes in our lives that grow us and develop us more into the image of God, that change the way we think, the way we pursue Christ, the way we learn to love God and love our neighbors more, they happen as a gift of God granted to us. But they are not going to happen if we are not seeking God in the ways that he shows himself to us. They're not going to happen unless we are pursuing God in his word and in his worship and in all those ways that he reveals himself to us. Now, we celebrate this, the conversion of St. Paul. And we look to God then to continue to change us, to convert us, to reshape our hearts and minds. And we wait. Our cry also goes up, "How long, O Lord?" But we wait knowing and trusting that it is God who is working in us and through us, and that in his time he will bring the change that we need, and all to the glory of his name. Amen.